So, here's what we're going to do, is we're just going to talk about our top 10 board games of all time, and you can't judge us, because there are, so can't. What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel, this is Father Greg, and this is our top 10 board games of all time for 2022.
Yeehaw!
We made it, man.
We made it. It was a long journey, but we're finally here.
Friggin' 1 hour of content every week.
Yeah.
In order to get to this point. But this is it. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Our top 10 board games of all time. We are so excited to share them with you, and we're really excited to hear what you have to say about them down in the comments below. This has been a wild ride. I wasn't sure at the beginning of this if we were going to make it to this point. I didn't know if you were going to be staying here in this chair, or if you were...
I contemplated leaving many times.
I've had enough of this garbage.
It's just terrible. No, it was great.
It was great. And we'll keep on doing more, because this is just good. I feel like we're really kind of... we've solidified an identity for the channel that I'm really proud of right now.
Good.
Yeah, it's very good. So, I'm going to have you start.
Great.
Because it will make for a really cool moment if I finish.
Okay.
So I'll just hold it there.
Great.
Awesome.
Sounds
Take us away.
All right. My number 10 is Suburbia.
Wow.
So Suburbia is the top of the Bezier Games pyramid there. So yeah, just a little city building. I like tile placement. I like the feeling that it conjures up in me when I put down that tile. I like it even more when I'm building out my nice little city. I put my freeway next to the residential buildings, and the people don't like the noise, and then I put like the radioactive waste plant, next to the other houses, and some people die, and it's just a delightful theme, that really sort of sets the stage. No, I like it. Like, I enjoy the building of a city. I enjoy a good city builder. That's one of my favorite themes. I think if you give me a game about tile placing, building a little city, I'm like, yeah, sure. And just the way that each tile affects each other, it's very thematic, right? Yeah, you don't want to put noisy things next to residential areas, or you don't want to put things that are highly pollutant next to residential areas. I don't want to build a new car shop, and then you build a new car shop, and then now my new car shop is less valuable because you got the newest cars, and so just this like neat little mechanic that goes on, and this little sort of market that things get cheaper as they sort of wane and drop off this market. Yeah, I just like Suburbia. It's a fairly kind of medium weight, just city builder tile placement. But if you like that, I love me some Suburbia.
I had slight interest in this game for the longest time, but then when Castles Mad King Ludwig came out, just like by looks alone, I don't think I could ever force myself to play Suburbia.
Right, Castles Mad King Ludwig is a bit more chaotic, right. And if you really want, you can get the Suburbia Collector's Edition, which is quite nice. It's also a giant box, and
it's a cube.
Way too much stuff. If you're ever like, you know what though, my big problem in board games is that I don't ever have the exact color shade that I want. Like, I like to be not green, but emerald. Then the Suburbia Collector's Edition is right up your alley. So I think there's like 26 player colors or something like that.
Wow, that's perfect. My number 10, speaking of city building, is Tiny Towns.
Wow.
Here it is. We just talked about this in a recent video with Sarah. Tiny Towns is where you build a tiny town. And so I just love Tiny Towns, not because I'm good at it. I'm horrible at it. I can't get my head around how to be efficient at this puzzle. But just like a game like Karuba, where everyone has an even playing field, everyone's working with the same kind of puzzle. Although there's a little wrinkle in that once everyone's had a turn to select what material you use for your buildings, you get to choose what you want. So you get this moment of freedom, this moment of, okay, I can do what I want to do this once, as you're hemmed in at all sides for the rest of the round, being forced to do these horrible things and take these horrible materials to make these shapes and patterns on your board to build these buildings that will score in a myriad of ways. And I just love the restriction as you're putting cubes out on the board, and then all of a sudden you've made a shape that now corresponds to a building. You put that building down, and you take away all the cubes again and put a building in one of the spaces where those cubes occupied, and so then the board kind of shrinks again, and you have more space to work with once again, and just this kind of, oh, I have no room. Okay, I have some room. Oh, I have no room again. Okay, I have some room. But like every time you get room,
There's less of it.
there's less of it. And I just love that fluctuating until you hit the limit and you're out. And it has this great thing about it where you're really competing. Like the competition is high for me in this game, where not only are you just seeing who gets the most points, but you're really like, you can measure how well you're doing against other players by elongating your game. And the fact that you're taking multiple turns more than other players, you get to flex how well you're doing at this efficiency puzzle. I'm never in that seat, but I can imagine it feels so good to be in that seat. One day I'll be there and I'll just be loving it.
Tiny Towns. Great.
Tiny Town.
My number 9 is talked about Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which is really complicated. Like there's a lot going on in those little detective cases. This one's a lot simpler. This is Watson and Holmes. So Watson and Holmes takes Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and turns it from a cooperative game into a competitive game, where now you're racing to try and see who can solve the case the fastest. And so you're going to different locations and you flip over a little card, and the card gives you just a little bit of a story. I love Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but a game of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective will take me kind of a whole night to read through and to think about and to make notes and jot stuff. Whereas a game of Watson and Holmes is playable in like 45 minutes. The cases are solvable. Sometimes in Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, you get to the end of this case and you flip it over, you're like, great, Sherlock, thanks. I would have never got there in a million years. Whereas at least like in Watson and Holmes, I'm like, okay, I got that wrong, but like, yeah, all right, that makes sense. I can see how the case actually has a definitive answer to it. And sometimes you can get there, you can figure it out, and you figure it out before all the other players. It's just nice. It's same thing. It's a case-driven game, so there's like 10 cases. So once you played kind of the 10 cases, you're more or less done with it. But then give it to somebody else. It's great. You can just replay it over and over
When did
again.
this come out? I don't think I've ever heard of this game.
Came out a number of years ago. Yeah, like at least 6 or 7 years ago, maybe.
Oh, okay. There's
yeah.
tons of these kind of games, man, and you are all the way in it, man.
Yeah, man.
A game I've never heard of on your top 10.
Love it. Oh, man.
How did we get here?
Oh, man. I don't know. Like I told you, this list is a lot of garbage, so...
My number 9 is going to prove that Sarah is the love of my life. If you watched her top 10, my top 10 is fairly similar to hers. And so my number 9 is Shadows over Camelot. This is it. This is the cooperative game. If you're going to say, Dana, what's the best cooperative game ever made? I'm going to say Shadows over Camelot. Because the experience that you get in this game, it's a perfect marriage for me of game mechanisms that keep everyone involved and in it with this awesome trader mechanic that works really well. There's been some games that have come, like Dead of Winter is a prime example, where it has this trader mechanic and it's a really immersive cooperative game. But personally for me, I find the mechanics of the game, you can get into sort of ruts where you're just doing a whole lot of nothing. You're going to locations, you're trying to find things, and nothing's really coming up for you. Shadows over Camelot, you can always sort of squirm out a way to contribute to the puzzle. And it's fun because the base kind of mechanisms are all sort of like poker hands, like it's like just card playing.
Right.
So new gamers can really get on board really quick. Like, what are you doing here? Oh, you just want to play a bunch of pairs. Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, you just want to make a run of like 1 to 5. So like the things that you're doing are very simple, very accessible, and create a wonderful arena for suspicion and treachery in a pretty big, expansive experience that I think it's worth its stay. It's not like you're trying to sort of screw around with each other for a few minutes, like Resistance style. You're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And then once the traitor's revealed, you have to keep on battling that traitor. That traitor doesn't just go away, but now they can continue to put monkey wrenches into your plans. And just the different ways, again, it's one of those things where it's like one way to win and a million ways to lose, right? It's an old game, but it's a good game, and I think it does cooperative better than anything else. Shadows over Camelot. My man, Bruno Cathala.
That is interesting because I barely consider this a cooperative game just because of like its trader mechanic. Like for me, it's almost in like a separate like resistance type category where it's like I'm trying to suss someone out. Cool. My number 8. I nearly thought we might perhaps somewhere in this top 10 get a double crossover right at the exact same spot where we might have the exact same guess. We didn't. But it was just barely off. My number 8 is Tiny Town.
No! This was the moment. This was our chance. No dropkick.
close.
This is so disappointing.
So close.
It was so close.
I know. It's a good question. Yes, Tiny Towns, you're right, is good for all those reasons. I do prefer the speaking, like choosing your own resource.
Yeah,
I
I
like
can
that,
see that.
master builder or whatever way. But yeah, like just this idea of, yes, you have this very small little grid. You're putting these little cubes on, but there's a lot of like, you're trying to create patterns. You can also like call out different things that you might see. Oh, like he wants a lot of glass. I'm never going to call out glass. Like, I know he's going to call glass every single time he gets the opportunity, but I'm going to, pick an entirely different strategy. The variability in cards that can come out. Each set of cards creates a different game. And with the expansions, there's like a lot of different variabilities that can come out. And yes, for all the reasons you said, it's a great game. I've played this many, many times, and it plays up to like 6 players as well,
Yes.
which is just really nice. If you ever want like a big group, because it doesn't really take any much longer with 6 players.
I played this at Gen Con with like 50 or 60 people.
Okay.
With the Brothers Murph leading the game.
Wow.
And fantastic.
Right.
Great. Like, as long as you have enough copies of the game or materials to play the game, you can play this with a billion people. Okay, my number 8. We got a complaint on one of our videos saying that there wasn't enough Stefan Feld on our top 100. Well, I don't think that's true. I think there's just the right amount of Stefan Feld.
One game is enough. That's all you need.
One game is enough. You had Castles of Burgundy.
Yep.
I have Bora Bora.
Wow, yep.
Bora Bora is my favorite Stefan Feld game, hands down. It is my favorite dice worker placement. It might be better categorized as action selection, but it's basically a dice worker placement game. It's the best in that genre, I think. And yes, it's point salad. Yes, it's everything kind of you come to expect from Stefan Feld, but I think it is particularly streamlined, and the theme of these sort of tribal islands and the colors, it's just a really nice place to spend a couple of hours, and there's some really cool crunchy decisions that you're having to make. The core of the board are these sort of islands with kind of an area control thing that you're doing. You start with one hut on one island, and then you need particular dice values in order to traverse the kind of lakes to put your huts in other places. But then other people can come along and they can bump you out of the main spot. You're still there, but then they're going to score the points at the end of the game. So whenever the game ends, whoever's actually in the main kind of spot on that island is going to get the points. So it's this really kind of, it's area control, but it's really timed. It's not just like you get there and you're kind of fine and you can kind of keep your position. You kind of don't want to get there early. So that's really cool. There's these cards that create a lot of flexibility for what you're going to do. You're collecting kind of jewelry and set collection type things. And everything's kind of really tight. You get 3 dice in a turn to do everything. And I just really, this game really, really sings.
I remember doing just a little review of like different games and the weight ranking that they have on BGG. And this one surprised me because it's considered like it's ranked to be a quite heavy game. Like
Yes.
it has a shocking, for me it was like, I don't remember Bora Bora being that complex, but I think it's worth it to say like, yeah, I don't think it's that difficult to learn, but there's a fair bit of complexity that comes out in the playing of it.
And it's really crunchy. Like, it's really crunchy. And it's just so satisfying. So, in worker placement games, sometimes there's like a bajillion actions. This is like, there's like 5 or 6 actions. That's all you got. And you're just kind of really fighting tooth and nail to get your stuff done.
Well, on BGG, if you go to your profile page, there's a statistics side. And one of the main statistics that they will give you if you've rated all of your games is you can look at the disparity in ranking. So you can see like which games you have ranked as 10s and which games the rest of BGG has ranked as like a 2.
Wow.
And so this is the game that BGG says I have overranked the most.
This is your unpopular opinion.
That's right. This is the game that BGG says is trash, but I think is amazing.
Oh, what is it?
And that game is Royals.
What?
Yeah.
People think this is garbage?
It's like rated like a 6.2 or something like that, or something like that. So
I
there's
don't know.
There's like a big, a big difference between my 10 and their 6.2. But anyways,
Okay, well, shame on you, boy.
anyways, for me, I've already said I like area control, and Royals for me is like just the quintessential sort of area control game. You're competing to have the most nobles in a particular country, and that's kind of like an area control. So you're competing with like the most influence in France, but then you're also competing for having the most of a particular noble. You want to have the most cardinals, or you want to have the most dukes, and then you're also competing for like having one of each of the. You want to get all of them first. Like you want to get one king, one princess, one cardinal, one duke, one marshal, whatever, to get these bonus tokens. And then it's just a very simple process. It's Ticket to Ride, and it's just one step further. You're picking up cards. You're trying to collect sets of, France cards or Spain cards or England cards or Germany cards. You're playing them, 5 green cards gets you the Cardinal of Cologne, and then you're just kind of set. But there's a healthy amount of like take that, especially depending upon whether you play. If you play with 2, it's pretty like easy. If you play with 5, by the end of like the first age, you're already like stabbing each other in the back as I need to get the cardinal, so I'm throwing you out and I'm, seating myself in his place. It's just a really interesting. There's a little bit of like a race element. You want to kind of be the first one into a city because you get this little point token if you're like the first to get in there. But then you also want to get the kings, which require a lot more investment. So it's like, well, do I race to grab as many cities as I can, just of little tiny guys, or do I wait to kind of hunker down and get some of the really big guys first, the guys that's going to be tough for other players to kind of take out of my hands? And yeah, it's just if I'm looking for a great sort of area control game, Royals is my go-to choice.
This game for me has like the highest frequency of yes, oh no, that I've experienced in a game, which is this constant like yeah, okay, I finally got no. What are you
That's
doing?
right. You start taking over England and you lose France, and then you're like, you start moving into Spain and you lose Germany.
And it's delightful how it just like you ride the tip of the lightning bolt the whole time. The big perk for me in this game too is that it feels sophisticated. The art and the cards, it's all these like family crests. It just feels like you're playing something much more sophisticated when really you are just playing Ticket to Ride. But it's great.
Love it.
BGG, you're wrong. My 7th favorite board game of all time. This would have been a controversial pick a long time ago, but lately some pretty high-profile board game YouTubers have come out saying really great things about this game, so I don't feel so sheepish, but this is Dogs of War.
Okay, wow.
Dogs of War is my 7th favorite board game of all time. This is my area control game of choice.
Right.
This is where it's at. And this game is so unique and strange and fun. Like there's things that you've seen before, but not quite like this. Never like this.
It is a strange game. It is. I will give you that.
Game. So you basically have every round you have these 3 battles, and the battles are between these different family houses, and they're randomly determined each round who's going up against one another. And then you get to sort of muster, is what the phase is called. And so you buy troops, and there's different valued troops that cost a certain amount of money. They cost 1, 2, 3, or 4 coins, and they have different values, like 1 value, 3 value, 5 value, 7 value, this kind of thing. And so you got a little bit of money, and you buy kind of as much as you can, trying to think about the sort of moves that you're going to be making. Basically what you're doing is you're playing tug of war on behalf of these houses. And you don't own any of the particular houses, but you're kind of collecting crests or shields of these houses when you support them in battle. So you're hoping that certain houses win, and you're trying to get their influence over to the side. So if I play 7, I move their line 7 in their direction, in their favor. And then someone else comes along and they play a 7 and undo everything I've done. And I'm like, well, pooey. The thing that makes this game sing is that not only are you trying to influence these houses in a sort of area control sort of game, but when you place your workers onto the board to influence these houses, there's rewards on the spaces. So you're getting a reward like a traditional worker placement game while you're playing an area control game. So now you're torn. You're not just going to influence a particular house in a traditional area control sort of way, but you're also going for the reward. You might need money to muster next round. You might need additional troops to actually play with because you have to place a worker with a military card. In order to do anything. So you might have an additional worker, but you ran out of cards, so you need to go to that spot with the cards. And so you're influencing a house that you don't really care about, but you just need to keep playing. And so it's just like, you're not necessarily doing the optimal thing in all the areas. You're kind of like, and it is great. And then the cherry on top, the piece de la resistance, those tactic cards, man. Those tactic cards make this game crazy. It's just these rule-breaking sons of guns. You just get these cards. Oh my goodness, they're ridiculous. It's just like, there's parameters of how a round works. And these tactic cards are just like, nope. So Dogs of War is excellent.
Right.
So good.
Some of perhaps what I would call the most uselessly, like, obscene minis. Like, there's these giant busts of heads. And, like, sometimes they're way too big. They don't need to be anywhere near that big. Like, this is a game where I'd be perfectly happy with like a cube in place of a mini, but that's fine.
It's just a spectacle.
That's right. But the idea of this game, which is, and it's not the only game that's ever done this, but this idea that you're not fighting for one house. You're not like this. You're not just the green house or the green player. You're like a player who is vested in multiple different interests. You're trying to, like, other people there's houses that are winning, but you're trying to grow your influence or your like vested help in each of those different houses and like getting those shields. That's always I really like that aspect of it where it's like it's not evident, at least at the beginning of the game, that I'm going in for green and you're going for purple. Cool. My number 6 is a crossover. You've already mentioned it last list or the list before. That is Quadropolis.
Okay, I was thinking this is going to be higher up on your list.
Love me some Quadropolis. Yeah, the first time I played it was with Dan, and yes, this idea, like, it's once again, it's tile placement, it's city building. I love it. It fits right into my wheelhouse. But just this thing, it's like a simple game, but man, like you take this tile and you count, okay, I put the 3 tile, I'm going to count 3 spaces in, I'm going to take that tile. Shoot, now that needs to go either in my 3rd column or my 3rd row. That little thing throws me off so many times and leaves me just going, what kind of puzzle is here? Like, there's just a richness to this game that I never get tired of. Even like, there's 2 options. There's like the standard mode and like the advanced mode. The standard mode is fine. Like, some people are like, oh, the standard mode's like easy. I'm like, it's not. Like, there's a puzzle involved, even in that like beginner mode or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
You don't even need to go onto the advanced mode. I mean, the advanced one's fine too.
Yeah.
Either one is good. But like, yeah, just that little thing of oh man, just the puzzle in this game thrills me to no end.
I remember almost killing a non-gamer friend of mine with this game. We went to a board game cafe. I explained this rule. And then we're playing the game, and he takes his first tile, and he goes to place it, and I had to remind him of the rule.
Right.
And he was just like, oh. you can see his brain just like shutting down, just leaving. He was just gone. He was just like, oh, no. Like, I can't do this.
That's right.
It's a crunchy puzzle. It's really, really good, though. Really satisfying.
Love it.
My 6th favorite board game of all time. Talked about it a bit with Sarah. A couple times now. Rajas of the Ganges.
We just played this one.
Guess what we just played today? Rajas of the Ganges. And you know what? I'm considering assassinating it from my list.
You lost miserably.
Miserably. So bad at this game. This is a game where, like, when it is good, it's good, but it stinks to not find your groove. And I've mentioned it before in a couple other videos, but the main thing that I get tied up on in this game, there's two primary ways of getting victory points. There's two victory point tracks, essentially. There's money, and then there's fame. And basically what you're doing is you're trying to get points both of those ways until your two markers meet. And typically the first person to do that will be the winner. Maybe not, but mostly that's the case. I struggle to get that balance right between, like, which to go for first, kind of where to go heavy. The game's almost not long enough to, because what I tried to do tonight or today was kind of prepare, like, not just build buildings right away, but get my tracks up so my buildings were worth more when I built them. But then by the time I was ready to build, things were kind of in the end game.
Right.
And so I was like, so you kind of got to move quick. It's a quick, fast-paced, medium weight Euro game where things are just kind of going for it. You have a bunch of different ways to score points, and the heart of this game is in the bonuses. Where you build tiles onto your own personal player board matters significantly, because if you don't trace paths to the edges of your player board, you're not going to get these bonuses, which allow you to keep on generating dice, which are hugely important. If you don't have dice in your pool at the end of a round, your next round is garbage.
Sad.
It's total garbage. And so getting these bonuses so that you have a constant kind of influx of money and dice especially, that's a huge point. And then moving up on the right tracks, the right pace. So I kind of went money heavy, and then I was going to kind of get into fame. But because of that, I only got one of my workers unlocked. And not, well, everyone else had two of their workers unlocked.
Right.
And so if I kind of, everyone else sort of went a little fame, a little money, a little fame, a little money, until they got their two workers, and they kind of did their own thing. I just didn't do that. And I was like, darn it, you know? My first round of the game, it was great. I had myself all set up to do, I was like, I'm going to have 3 karma. So when I land on these river spots, I'll get 3 dice every time I land on those spots. I had my plan in place, and then just all fell apart.
That's right.
It didn't work. I blew everything in that first round, and then I was just struggling to get it back again. You had a good time with it today?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I'm sorry this didn't end up on my top 100. It probably should have. Cool. My number 5 is a game that I have played many, many times. If I was ranking my most played games, this would be very near the top. Although I primarily play this game solo, and that is Marvel Champions.
Cool.
So I've played a lot of Marvel Champions, have all the many, many hero packs and expansions that have come out. Love Marvel Champions, just the way, I mean, I like Marvel, the theme, I enjoy, the superhero theme, but then just this interesting, like, card play of, I like crafting a deck. I even, like, when I'm not playing the game, I'm sitting down at home, like, wondering about a deck that I can make. Even if I'm not playing the game, I'm just, like, fiddling through my cards, like looking at them going, if I put these 2 cards together, that would be a lot of fun. And yeah, and there's enough things that can change with different villains. Like, each villain has their own little thing. Ultron just sends all these bunch of little tiny minions at you. Other dudes have fewer minions, but they're really big, massive dudes. The expansions add a little bit of, like, a campaign mode, which is kind of interesting. You can put cards into your deck that kind of remain from game to game. The ways that each hero works differently are really interesting. Yeah, I've just played this game so many times, and yeah, Marvel Champions, love it.
That's awesome, man. I've been really interested in playing this. I played the Lord of the Rings LCG a little bit, and it just fell flat for me. Like, I saw the appeal, but I'm not a solo gamer, and that's the easiest way to play these games is solo, because it's hard to find another person that's as invested in an LCG to kind of play along with you and stuff like that, and kind of get into it, because it is a bit of a lifestyle game-ish, like you're buying all the things. But this seems more fun. It's
I think it's a little bit, like they say, like a little bit maybe simpler than Lord of the Rings. There's still enough going on, like with each card, and each expansion adds more complexity. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. The base game's fairly simple, but as you go and buy the 100th expansion, the things get a little bit more complex. And same thing goes with Marvel Champions.
Right, for sure. Okay, my number 5, my 5th favorite board game of all time, is aptly numbered. 5 Tribes. For the longest time, I would have said that this is my favorite board game of all time. Mm-hmm. But as I was making this list and as I was thinking about things, I had recently played 5 Tribes and realized there's a couple of issues. It doesn't take it down much.
Right.
Because this game lives strong in my heart. I have such an affection for this game. The reason why this game is so good is because there are 5 different colored meeples, and those all do different things to score you points. And then there's different tiles on the board that also do different things to score you points. And so every turn, you're picking up a fistful of meeples, and then you are traversing across the board, dropping a meeple off at each tile as you traverse. And then you have to end on a tile that has the same colored meeple on it somewhere as the last colored meeple that you were dropping off. And then you pick up all of the meeples of that color that you're ending with from that tile, and you do that scoring action however many times you have meeples, essentially. And so you're set collecting at the market, or you're collecting a bunch of money with your builders, or you are getting elders that you can then spend to buy genies, or you are getting viziers, or you're getting assassins. You can assassinate meeples, either that your player has collected or that are on the board to claim another tile. If you ever clear a whole tile, you put your camel on it and get the points that are on that tile. There's just so many ways to get points. If you finish on a particular tile, it might give you a palm tree or a palace, which adds 3 to 5 points. And then you get a genie that boosts that 3 points to 5 points, or there's 5 points to 7 points, or there's just so many, just the point possibilities are endless. And this was the first game I played where money was victory points and vice versa. And so in order to go in turn order in this game, you do an auction. You bid on turn order. And so you're spending points in order to be the first to get the biggest point move that you can see. And so all these factors at once just sync up to be just an amazing, beautiful game.
Yeah, a few things surprised me about this game. One is that more games don't use the Mancala mechanism. I hear Trajan does. I've never played Trajan, but I'm told it does.
Trajan does it well.
But that's it. There's not that many games. I mean, there probably are some others, but there's not that many games that utilize this mechanic, which both of those games are both well-regarded games, and yet not a lot of games that borrow from it. I don't have the patience for this game. I think when I look at all of these possibilities, I find one that works and I just kind of go, oh, okay, I'll do that. Instead of other players will sit there and they'll be like, well, I see one that works, but can I get more? What if I do this? Oh, that'll only give me 10 points. This will only give me 15. This will only give me 17. I'm like, I found 13. That seems fine. I'll just do that. And so I don't succeed at this game, but I can see its value.
Well, this is a theme for me, is that these games that are in my top are all very tactical games. Dogs of War is very tactical. This is very tactical. You're not going for a long-term strategy because the board complexion changes every round completely. And so you're just looking at the board and you're saying, what's the most amount of points I can get this turn? And so I really like it for that reason. But yeah, it takes a long time to make sure that you're getting the optimal move.
Right. My number 4, I've shared a number of times that I enjoy the designer Michael Kiesling. And this is my favorite game of his. This is Heaven and Ale.
Wow.
So this is a dense game. This is a game that I don't think is that difficult, at least in the rules explanation, but is very tight. Money is very hard to come by. The tile placement, you get a tile and it's oh, I can put this, you can put it anywhere you want. Where do you want to put it? Put it on the shaded side of your hill. You can put it on the sunny side of your hill. You choose. But when you actually sit and figure out oh man, where you put that tile is extremely important. Because if you put it next to a shed, depending when that shed is fully surrounded, how many points it scores will depend upon all of a sudden you're oh, I should have put the 5 next to this 2 instead of putting it next to the other 5. That was a waste. And then the scoring. The scoring is so weird in this game. Like, you have to kind of start out, and it doesn't make sense to anybody the first time you explain it, because you got all these little things that are moving up, and you're scoring the lowest value of them. And some start way below 0. And so it's possible that you could score 0 points in this game. Like, and if you're playing it for your first time, that's entirely a real possibility that you will score absolutely no points because you will just completely like miss the whole puzzle. But then you get this multiplier, so you could score like your lowest times 5, and that's really good. But like if your lowest is like still at 1, that's still really bad. And so just I don't know, but like the puzzle that is involved in this game, like if you really sit and try to measure, like you could go overboard in AP on this too. But it involves that ratchet mechanism, that Tokaido, like you can go as far as you want along the track. You take a tile, you put it in your spot. The scoring elements are really, really interesting. Like at a certain point, you can score all of your blue tiles. You're like, well, I want to do that later at the game, but you have to score some of them early on because you need that money that you need to like propel you forward. So you're forced
to type thing.
That's right. So you're forced to kind of like score a building or like a series of tiles before it actually like is most beneficial, but you really need to do it right now. This game hurts my brain. Like by the time I'm finished with this game, I am exhausted. It takes everything out of me, but I love Heaven and Ale so much.
Wow. I think people are going to love that pick. That's my prediction. Number 4, this is Bruno Catala, the top 10 list. My top 10 Bruno Catala games are my top 10. This is Abyss, baby. You knew it was coming. It was coming. This was on Sarah's list too. I didn't think I liked Abyss more than 5 Tribes, but I do.
Wow.
I do. This is excellent. This is this really cool, better, higher player counts. You got this really cool kind of searching the depths of the sea, right? Which is, it's this drafting mechanic, but it's this sort of weird blind drafting where if it's your turn, you're revealing cards and you don't get to choose them right away. You have to let everyone else see if they want them first, and then they pay you a pearl, which is a currency in the game, so that's a nice bonus. If they want it, then the next person wants a card from you has to pay 2 pearls. The next person wants a card from you has to pay 3 pearls. So it can be quite lucrative, but you're seeing all these really great cards that you need to purchase lords, which give you immediate or ongoing abilities and victory points, the ability to get these kind of terrain tiles that do all sorts of amazing things for you, and game scoring essentially. But all of this stuff that you do in the game hinges on these tiny little cards with numbers 1 to 5 on them. And there are these different factions, seahorses and crabs and octopuses, and there are all these anthropomorphic versions of these creatures, and really cool underwater political theme that, and you talk a lot about putting a story onto or into games. This is the game that I infuse with a story. Right. It's not thematic or narrative driven at all, but I just I made an alliance with the seahorse farmers, and I really earned their trust. And then I stabbed them in the back when I let the crab baron overlord come in and like take advantage and plunder all of their harvests. Anyway, these are the kinds of things that this game evokes for me, and I just really, really, really love this game because it's simple. On your turn, you do one of 3 things. But the game really comes to life in how like you're doing fairly simple things, but the actual scoring, the endgame scoring, and how the cards that you want to keep in your hand and the cards that you want to use to buy lords matters. It's not just like, oh, I have what I need to spend, so I'll just buy the thing. No, like you need to be very precise about the cards you're spending from your hand so that you have the most optimal scoring opportunities at the end of the game. It's not just by rote. Like you really need to like think about if you want to win at this game. I've talked about far too much, but Abyss, amazing.
Right, I can hear what you mean about it's not the most thematic game, but it has a very immersive theme. The artwork, the board, the pearls, everything. I feel like I am in this underwater world. It is a really cool kind of theme and artwork, and it all plays together really nicely. I have made my top 100 for a couple years now, at least maybe 4 years now or something like that. And this game was consistently my number one. This is so this game has fallen down 2 spots to number 3, and it's always a conscious decision when you know something is your number one,
It's
and
the
then it
weirdest
comes
thing.
up in your top 100. You're like, oh no, I really do like this other game better. And so this is a game that has long been my favorite game, but that is Concordia.
Okay.
So Concordia, Mac Gertz. I think it's the only Mac Gertz game I've ever played, but I love it. It's you are trading in the Mediterranean, which, like Tom Vassell says, is the most boring, useless theme. I love trading in the Mediterranean. I have no problems with it. The ancient Roman Empire, I got wine and I'm trading it for silk. Hey, what more do you want? This is delightful.
And it's not so bad now, because now in the hobby, all
right.
sorts of themes happen way more often now. So this isn't as run of the mill as it used to be.
But yeah, and it's just an economic game. You're trying to. There's a bit of like a, not really a rondel, but you have this hand of cards, sort of like Century Spice Road or whatever, where you're playing a card and you're doing whatever that card says, and then you're taking a turn to like pick up your cards again. And ideally, you want to play as many cards before you have to pick them back up. There's a kind of efficiency engine in that, and so you're trying to maximize the use of each card. So one card might let you build as many times as you want, so you want to like save up as many resources as you can, but you can only hold so many resources in your warehouse, so you have to like fill up your warehouse to its maximum, go and play your building card, your architect card, and then just like build 3 or 4 houses onto the board. And so there's that very satisfying feeling. There's this sense of which, like, you start out and it's like, I don't know, how do I get a silk? I can barely manage to get anything. And then all of a sudden you're just getting resources coming at you left, right, and center. This idea that you can have a region score on like somebody else's turn and you get little goodies that come out of that. Like, so you score Italy and all of a sudden I'm getting a free wine, and I'm just like, sweet, cool, I like that. So you're just, even on other players' turns, you're getting stuff. Just really love it. Nice sort of, this is my economic, my money kind of driven. If I'm planning out my turns in advance, this is that game that satisfies that for me.
Excellent pick. I only played it once. I had it on my list, but I didn't feel like I warranted keeping it on my list because I didn't quite remember everything that was going on. My third favorite board game of all time, you mentioned a while ago now, It's a Wonderful World. This is my favorite drafting game. It is absolutely amazing. It takes the drafting mechanic and just streamlines it and mashes it with an amazing, efficient engine builder. This game is out of this world for me, where you have this great round of drafting, and then you move into this sort of like planning phase where you're like, okay, here are the cards, for all the cards I've drafted, here are the cards that I want to build, and here are the cards that I want to use to get the resources to build the cards I said I was going to build. And so every turn, you're kind of gambling a little bit on like, I think based on the different bonuses I can get throughout the round, based on the cards that I will build that will get me resources. It's this really weird thing in that you gain the resources that are the different colored resources essentially throughout the game round. And so you can build a card that will gain you a particular resource earlier in the round and then gain those resources from it later in the round to then use to build another card later in that round.
Right.
And so it's this really neat thing where you're like, okay, yes, if I build that, then I'll have the resources to build this, but you can bite off more than you can chew pretty easily and kind of end up kind of overextending yourself and not having the resources to buy the cards. And so you kind of keep it in your sort of construction area for the next round. But then the next round, you get a whole new mitt full of cards that you might want to attend to different things. And so this is a game where you really have to pay attention to the scoring potentials on the cards, because you can get really carried away with cards that will get you a lot of resources to build more cards. And you can get caught up in like, that's what you're doing. But no, you need to be building cards that will actually score you victory points. A strategy where you're scoring a lot of points for the same type of thing so that you're not wasting a lot of your energy that way. But just the way that this game builds and the way that a round can start off, this is a game where like it doesn't get harder as the round goes on. As the round goes on, you feel hopeful because things are kind of falling into place. But it's snappy, it's quick, it's fast. This is a delight.
Nice. I'm surprised this is your number 3 game. I never would have pegged it to be that high for you. I knew you liked it, but yeah, I have the expansion for this. It's in my car. I haven't even played it yet. I haven't even opened the box.
Let's do it.
But yes, I'm very excited to play.
It's only midnight. We'll be fine.
That's right. My number 2. This is a game that I really enjoy this. And I've got the deluxe edition of it, and for me, this is one of the best deluxe editions. Every one of the components I love, and that is Gugong.
Wow! How the hell did Gugong get this high on your list?
Love it. It's just great. So like the components, like all the little details in this game, like from the components to like the little like art to the inserts that fit all your pieces, everything. Like in the deluxe edition, that alone jumps it up like a good like 10 spots on the list. But then the like card play of it, this idea that you have like it's a worker placement. You're going around to all these different spots, but you have this hand of cards from 1 to 9, and you can go to any spot. But if you want to use that spot's ability, you have to play a card that's higher than it. So if there's already a 7 there, I need to play an 8 or a 9. Except for the 9, which can be beaten only by a 1, and that kind of starts the wheel turning around. But then when you play a card to that spot, you get that card back into your hand. So like even if I go to a spot and I don't get to use its ability, like I took a really high card back into my hand, so now I'm kind of future invested in future turns. And it is a bit of like a point salad. There's a lot of like different aspects on the board. It's like, well, you can go travel, or you can go collect jade, or you can go and build the Great Wall, or you can go and sail down a river, or you can go like there's a lot of little things, but that how it all fits together, man, this game, love it. Love everything about this game. This is one game where a lot of these games, even though I love them, there's like a little small thing that I just don't really like that thing. But this is a game where I just love everything in it.
Perfection.
I just there's nothing in this game that I go, I don't like that.
Wow.
I just love it.
Well, let me talk about a game where you do say that. Where you say, I don't like that. I don't. I love this game, but you have problems.
Okay.
With this game. My second favorite game of all time is Dune Imperium.
Yeah.
We played this the other night, and I was so excited to show Father Greg like the best board game in the world, and he was just like, "What the?" He didn't know what to do with this.
That's right.
So Dune Imperium is, in my estimation, the perfect blend of worker placement and deck building. You're going to disagree, but
no, it's fine. Go for it.
I think that this really, like, in other games that have tried to do this kind of thing, the deck building has fallen into the background. And I think that the cards are an immensely important part of this game, and it is so important what you put into your deck and what you have into your deck, and it totally feeds into what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to send your workers to the different areas on the board that you need to get to do what you're trying to do. And it's a smooth, elegant system where you place an agent on the board, but the board, all the worker placement spots have different symbols, and the symbols are on the cards that you have. So you play a card that has that symbol, you send that worker to that spot, you get the certain thing. And what really makes this game for me is that on the side of the board, there's these guilds. And there's these, like, they're the special worker placement spots. And some of them are pretty darn cool, and some of them are, like, all right. But every time you go to them, you move up on that guild's track. And there's points along these guilds' tracks. And there's only going to be 10 points, essentially. Maybe 10 to 13 points you're going to score in this game. And so every point matters. So going to those spaces, even if you don't love what you're getting at those spaces, you want to go there so that you're moving up these tracks. Making sure that you have cards in your deck that allow you to go to those spaces is incredibly crucial. And so you're always like really paying attention to what's happening on the card market and making sure that you're able to purchase. But it's also a game where the deck building is precise, where you don't necessarily want to just load your deck. It's not necessarily advantageous to load your deck. You kind of just want to have the right amount of stuff to be able to send your agents to the spaces that you want to go regularly, and then just kind of run that sucker through as much as you can. I think this game is elegant. It hits an amazing sweet spot for me. This is a game where it's an investment, like it's a fairly lengthy play. Like this is a 2.5 hour game every time I've played, essentially. But at the various player counts. But it's just a fairly meaty investment. But like the time goes like that. Like I look at the clock and I'm like, whoa, an hour went by. It did not feel like an hour went by. This just like totally sucks me and totally immerses me. Incredible. This is my like go-to game right now. I'm like,
Right.
want to play Dune Imperium? Want to play Dune? Want to play Dune Imperium? Want to play it? Do you want it? Do you want it right now? Let's go.
Top of your hotness and nearly the top of your top games of all time.
Whew, almost made it.
Wow. No, I don't hate this game. I think it confused me, and it still confuses me. I still am really unsure what this game is. Like, because it's like, it kind of is like, oh, it's a deck builder. But it's not. It's so different than a regular deck builder. You're not just trying to create a deck that has some kind of synergy, because the deck has cards that are those worker placement spots. So it's like, you're not building a deck, you're building like a worker placement board, as it were. Like you're building spaces that you can go to. It's like, oh, so this is a worker placement game. Well, sort of, but there's like this deck that you have to worry about. And so it's just like a weird thing that I don't know what it is. It's like, it wasn't the most amazing game. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, yes, this game totally deserves to be on the top 10. But that being said, we spent like 2 hours talking about it. So any game that like gets you talking and really just like in your mind working over like, do I like this game? I don't know. That thing I wasn't crazy about, but man, that was kind of cool. That's how I feel like Dune Imperium. It's just, yeah.
And we didn't even mention the conflict part of the game, but that's
Right.
cool too. Okay, Father Greg, I want you to tell me your favorite board game of all time. I want to know what it is.
Okay.
It's been really hard for me to guess, and
Right.
because you played a lot of games without me, you played a
For
lot of
sure.
games with me, so it's been hard for me to kind of get a feel for what. So I don't know if I can think of a game.
We have
It's
played this
missing.
game together.
We
You
have.
have played this game. In fact, I got it from you. This is a game that you own and that I now own.
So apparently I didn't like it all that much. All right, well.
And this game, you talked about how I like to create stories into my games.
Yeah.
That's why this game for me beats out Concordia, is because I tell a story every single time that I play this game, and that is Village. I love Village. And
Village is number one.
love it.
Village is
I
number
love
one.
it.
Die, villagers, die, and get me points.
It's like, this is like the most like homey board game. Like
Oh,
it's just,
it's so
the
cozy.
theme is so cozy. I tell a story every time I'm
Morbid.
done, but it's like, it's delightful.
Yes, yes.
You send out your guy to the cart smith, and he becomes the best cart smith in town, and he makes 2 carts, and then he dies from the plague.
It's just a generational farming, agriculture.
And he gets buried, but that's fine, because then the next guy comes out, and the next generation, he decides he's going to go explore, and he goes and visits 3 towns, and then he dies from the plague. And so you bury him. But at the end, you got the little town like book, and you go over it, and you're like, look at Mr. Smith, he was the first priest in the church, or we sent him away, and we didn't know when we were going to see him again. He went into this black bag, and he disappeared forever. And all of a sudden, one day we went to mass, and he was there.
Yeah, how do you
was
feel
in the
about
church.
like, the monastery or seminary being represented by a black abyss?
No, it's delightful. You never know what's coming out. It's like, who's saying mass today? Oh, look, it's your green number 3 guy. And you're like, sweet, he made it. Like, we haven't seen that guy in 20 years. This idea of like time as a resource is just this beautiful, fascinating thing that, yes, you can often like spend resources to do an action, or you can spend time. It's like, and these resources represent like skills. Like the pink cubes represent like intelligence, and the orange cubes represent like charisma, or maybe I have those mixed up or whatever. Or the green cubes represent something, and the blue cubes represent something. And so each cube represents like a skill. So it's like, well, I could use my knowledge and and creativity to make a cart, or I could just spend 3 hours doing it. And so you spend this time, but then this time, as it goes around this board, every single time it crosses over the bridge, somebody has to die. But it's not the worst thing, because like sometimes you want a lot of people to die, because the first people that die go into the town chronicle. They get remembered forever as the founding members of the town. You don't want to be, just buried in the unmarked graves. It's delightful. I love the theme. Just this kind of quaint medieval town where, like, at the end of your life, you have not done something amazing. You have made 2 carts and you have visited 3 towns. But it just feels so delightfully satisfying.
So, my friend,
I'm trying to figure out your number one,
we
too.
end where we began. We joke a lot about our list being inverted, and this is the ultimate
that makes sense.
version of this happening. This is Elysium. My number 1 favorite board game of all time. Your 100. My number 1. I love that this is reality. I've been holding on to this whole time.
Wow.
For 2 months. I've been saying, once you said Elysium was your 100, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing.
Wow.
Is my number 1. I love Elysium. I just love this whole idea of drafting cards, and the drafting, I've said it a million times, is this amazing system with these 4 colored pillars. You have to have those colored pillars in front of you that match the colors on the card that you want to draft in order to draft it. And then at the end of that draft, you have to take one of those pillars and remove it. And so you're drafting, you have to kind of know, you got to create a game plan for your drafting round. You got to kind of know what you want to be left with and what you think you can get that other people will leave behind as well. Like, you kind of got to like do a little game saying, okay, these are going to be left behind. I got to do this first because that's going to be taken. And then once you got those in your agora, you got those hanging out, you can use them for different abilities and all these cool different things, and getting a bunch of money and getting powers and kind of attack other players maybe, and you get to do these all sorts of wonderful things. That's not the point. You can't get lost in that. You can't get distracted, because you got to move these tales of legend into your Elysium in this wonderful set collection thing. Once you move them into your Elysium, their abilities are gone, and you just have to kind of really hope that you are making these sets that will get you a lot of points. And of course, it's this race where the first one to make a set of a particular type will get a bonus token that will get them extra victory points. And so, very simple progression from drafting to abilities to then end game scoring, where you got to kind of move these cards from stage to stage down into the depths and use them to their best ability all the way along. I just think this game is absolutely fantastic. I mourn in my heart that when I show people, and this happens to me a lot because I'm an excitable guy, right. I hype things up to the nth degree, so this happens a lot, where I show people something and they're like, that was good. I'm like, good? This better be the best thing you've ever done in your entire life. Right. And so I play this game with people and they're like, yeah, that was good. That was enjoyable, And I'm just like, this is better than good. This is pure genius. Matthew Dunstan has done something amazing with this game. Something amazing has happened in the creation of this game. And yes, it's just colors and numbers. It's not thematic. It's not like crazy in any sort of way. It's just, so good. So maybe I said that It's a Wonderful World is my favorite drafting game, but that's not true. This is a drafting game.
That's right.
This is my favorite drafting game.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think one of the things, sort of like viticulture, I find going first in turn order on the last round is really important, because getting your choice of how many, because when you pick your turn order, you're also picking like how many cards you can put into the Elysium.
Yes.
And so it's not like you can just hoard 100 cards in your Agora and then drop them all down at the end. You can only drop down like 5 cards or 3 cards. It's very systematic, yeah. And so if you're like the last player in turn order on that last round, and you only get to drop down like 1 or 2 cards, oh man. So it's almost like you have to plan the whole game, try to plan around, I want to make sure that in the last round, I can pick first to drop down as many guys as possible. For sure. Yeah. That tension's really nice.
It's intense. Well, party people, those are our top 10 board games of all time. You've been here for it all. You've been here from 100 to 1. And we can't thank you enough for being here. We love sharing our love and joy of board games with you. We love you sharing yours with us. Keep on commenting. Keep on talking with us. We're going to keep on coming at you with content. Sarah will be on the channel. Father Greg will be on the channel. The three of us will be on the channel. We're just going to do all sorts of fun things. And so hang tight, wait for what's next. It's going to be good. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, have the best day.
Take care.